We're going to get started. Good morning again. Many of you are joining us for the first time. Again, my name is Shauna Young. I'm the Executive Director here at Duke TIP, and really excited to be with you here today. Again, so insightful, the research team's presentation that we had. There's so much that we want to share with you in a short amount of time, but you can always reach out to our research team via the website. Matt Mickles and contact information is there, as well as other members of our team. I'm really, really excited to introduce to you Christoph Guttentag, the Dean of Admissions here at Duke University. I don't want to spend too much time reading his bio for you because you can do that right in the handout that you should have received walking in. But I will say that he is a huge TIP advocate. His daughter is actually a TIP alum, and he has spent numerous years coming here every year to share with you information that you don't just get on a website or if you reach out to a normal admissions office. I will say the one thing I'd like to share about Christoph is that he is highly transparent for the role that he's in. When I was coming into my role in 2016 and then had the opportunity to introduce him in 2017, I did what everyone does. I went online. I started looking at videos of him, and I was just so inspired by how open he was about what it takes to go to an amazing school like Duke University and other universities that students might be interested in. So I will stop talking and give the mic to Christoph.
Thank you. All right. Woo. Okay. Good morning. If this were in Massachusetts or something, none of you would have responded, right? And I was mentioning earlier that I was hoping for a stool, instead of a podium, there's sort of a stool, and having my notes here. And the wonderful woman in the back who made it happen, she said, "Oh, like a comedy show?" And no. I mean, listen. Can I just tell you? So, my child was here in one of those seats, probably sitting way in the back. Now let's see. He's a sophomore in college. Currently, actually, by the way, if you believe in the power of prayer or good thoughts, is right in the middle of a quantum physics final exam. So, and any good thoughts you can send Aaron's way would be nice, but yeah, we've been in your shoes, and I think that this is both really exciting and it's daunting, and we as parents see get some inkling of the potential of our children, and when I was, Shauna and I were just talking, when I was in high school there was no TIP, but I was fortunate enough to be in a gifted program, and it's exciting. It's exciting to be challenged. It's exciting to be given opportunities. It's exciting to sort of stretch your mind a little bit and to think about things and to be with other people who are like that. It's one of the real advantages of TIP and programs like TIP, whether they're summer programs, weekend programs, after school, during school programs, where you get to hang out with people that think the way that you do, and that enjoy thinking the way that you do. So, let's see, 8, 9, 10, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You could tell I was not actually in TIP because I'm counting on my fingers. So 5 more years of middle school and high school, and then when you get to college, it's even more exciting. And I will share with you something that a friend of mine said when I was about to go off to college. And she said, if you think you're going to like college, but you're going to love graduate school. So not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but I guarantee you, every one of your parents is not only thinking about where's my kid going to go to college, but they're also thinking, okay, what graduate degree are they going to get? So, parents, I know, you can pretend that's not the case, but we know. All right, I've been doing admissions for 36 years. I spent 9 years in the admissions office at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. I spent the last 27 years and counting here at Duke. I've been personally responsible for somewhere north of about 300,000 admissions decisions, which is a lot. And I've also been a parent of a student who was a tipster, who came to the grand recognition ceremony, who, and who had, to be honest, right, who had the advantages and the challenges of being ready for a program like TIP, because it's not always easy. So, so I've learned a few things, and I'd like to share a few things with you. And if I can go through my notes a little more quickly than I'm going right at this very moment, we'll have plenty of time for questions and answers. So we have that to look forward to. All right. So I've got a couple of things to mention. First, let's talk about how you got here, right? And you got here because, as we say in the admissions profession, you tested well, right? You test well. That's a little phrase we have. For someone who standardized tests, for whom standardized tests of the sort that you've taken, whether it's SAT or ACT or Explore or PSAT or all of the other assessment tests that assessors are fond of, that you've done well. And in fact, for the last time I checked, the kind of test scores that it takes to come to a program like this in the grand recognition ceremony typically places you roughly in the top 10% of testers among high school seniors. Right. So this is a thing. It's a real thing. It's a meaningful thing. And it reflects any number of things. To some degree, what it reflects is what I call good wiring. You've just, and your parents probably noticed it a long time ago. I noticed it with my own child. We were at a toy store, and he was doing that sort of stacking thing, where you've got three little poles and discs of different colors and sizes, and you got to make them stack right. And the owner was looking at Erin doing it and kind of raised her eyebrows and went, kind of like, huh, she's doing that quickly. And so we all notice these things. And you as parents have noticed these things, right? So this is a thing, and it's a meaningful thing. And the reason you're here and the reason you're thinking about what do we do next is because it's a real thing and because it has an effect on how we educate our children, how we support our children. So, and in the world of college admissions, that counts for something. And one of the first things I want to tell you is that there are people out there who will essentially say, oh, your kid's so smart or your kid tests so well, they can go to college wherever they want. It's like their ticket is already written, right? Well, they're lying to you, all right? So don't believe them. I'm sorry if that's a deep disappointment to many of you. There are a lot of things that are going to go on in the next 5 years that are going to have a much greater effect on what happens with the college admissions process than testing alone. But the good part is the testing matters, and you have something to start with. So I'm going to talk about what to do. So the first thing that I want to mention is that it's not just the testing, it's the whole overall academic record that colleges will look at when they're trying to get a sense of you or your child as an academic person. Right? So it's the testing, it's the courses, and I just heard this great presentation about all of the possible curricular options, and I'm happy to talk about those, and it's the grades, right? And so those three things together, the courses and the rigor of the course selection, typically within the context of whatever school your child is attending, and the grades, again, within the context of the kinds of grades a school normally gives out, and then the standardized test score. So those three things together, along with any other academic credentials, whether it's a summer program or not, whether it's advanced placement scores or not, sort of whatever the whole academic record is, that's That's the beginning. That's the beginning. That's the part that colleges tend to look at first to sort of figure out, okay, how does this person fit into our applicant pool, right? So it's worth paying attention to those things. As we just heard great presentations about the research and about the opportunities that you have or your child has, and those things matter. For those of you that where your child is attending a high school that has a lot of resources, that knows what to do with talented students, count your blessings. For those of you where that's less the case, I will share with you really good advice that my wife and I got years and years and years ago, which is we, the parents, had to be our child's advocate. Nobody is ever going to be as good an advocate for your child as you. Now, you don't want to be a pain, right? I mean, you don't want to be that person that people cringe when they see. That becomes counterproductive. But keep in mind, right, that nobody is ever going to be as committed to your child's education as you are. And again, we just heard evidence of what all of the possibilities are. It's worth exploring, it's worth asking, it's worth thinking, but don't be afraid to be your child's advocate. But the flip side to that is, not the flip side, but there's a kind of a corollary to that, which I repeat over and over again when I'm talking with parents, and that is, meet your child where they are. Listen to your child, pay attention to your child, support your child, but this is, okay, I'm going to digress here for a moment. This is not what I should do, but here I am, and you can't stop me. So I know you've been reading about the whole Varsity Blues scandal, and the interesting ways in which parents of considerable means think that they can help their children get into a college. And it occurred to me the other day that those parents, separate from the ethical and the legal issues, okay, let's just for a moment put them aside. Separate from that, those parents who went to these incredible lengths, often, generally immoral, often illegal, they thought they were doing something for their children, and instead they were doing something to their children, because those children are now being kicked out of college, they're being asked to leave, their parents are in the news, they will be forever linked with that. So we as parents, when we're supporting our children, we want to make sure that we don't cross the line from doing something for our children to doing them to our children. So that's why thinking about where is our child? What do they want? What do they need? Where they're comfortable? How can we push them but not push them too far? There are things that we learn about our children and that I learned about my own child through this process. And it was very important for me to realize when I had gone too far and where I could push and where I shouldn't push. So meet your children where they are. Support them, but also listen to them and pay attention to them and meet them where they are. Okay. On to the actual college selection process. For some colleges, there are colleges out there where the academic record is really all that matters in the admissions process. Right? There are those colleges out there, and some of them are very, very good. What a college takes into account when they're making admissions decisions is something that every representative of a college should be able, or of the admissions process, should be able to answer. Their websites should tell you, their admissions staff should tell you. What a college takes into account is something, and what they don't take into account is something that they should be very willing to share. It's also true, just as an aside, that colleges always want to make themselves sound the colleges want to make themselves sound as appealing as possible to as many people as possible, and they want to come across as selective as possible, right? That's how they want you to be excited by the fact that they've admitted your child, or you, right? So you should always take everything we say with a grain of salt, right? There all should be a tiny little bit of distrust, except for me. You can trust what I say implicitly, but yeah, so it's worth asking, and the data is out there in various forms about who's admitted and what they look for. All right. So there are colleges out there where all they really care about are the academic credentials, right? And then there's another set of colleges out there where the academic credentials are the beginning but not the end of the process, and that's what I'd like to talk about, because there are a lot of good colleges out there, and my guess is that you may very well find yourself or your child applying to or attending one of those colleges, or being at least considered for them. Okay, so here's the first thing. Small differences in academic credentials don't make a big difference in the college admissions process. Here's how this works. There are other things we take into account other than academic credentials, and I'm going to talk about those in just a minute. But we have the luxury, we're a school, like a lot of good schools, we have the luxury of picking the interesting students from among the smart ones. Right? So a student who has 10 or 20 or 30 points more or less on the SAT, that's a meaningless distinction, right? You don't have to have perfect grades. You want to have good grades, but they don't need to be absolutely perfect. You don't have to take the absolutely most difficult curriculum that's conceivably available at your school, right? You want to challenge yourself, but you don't want to overdo it. You want to get good grades, but you don't want to be unhappy. You want to you want to test well, but you don't have to be perfect. And I guarantee you that among that band of students who are well qualified, or let's just say highly qualified academically, little differences in the academic credential don't matter. It's the other stuff that matters, right? Once we're talking about that band of students who are really strong academicians, other stuff matters. Little differences don't matter. So do well, but don't feel like you've got to be perfect. So now let me tell you what matters. All right, the first thing. Colleges love students that enjoy the learning process. I will always prefer the student who's second or third or fifth or 10th in the class, who loves to learn, who thinks about learning, who thinks about what they're learning and how it connects to other things, who thinks of interesting questions, who makes connections between different subjects, who is willing to ask the teacher, you said this on Thursday, and now 4 days later you're saying that, and these things seem to contradict each other in this subject that we're talking about. How does that work? Students who enjoy the process of learning, and it doesn't have to be in every subject, but students who, at least in a couple of subjects, like the process of getting new information, thinking about it, wondering about it. Like, I will always prefer the student who's 5th or 10th in the class, who has that attitude, as opposed to the student who's first in the class, who all they care about is getting straight A's and being valedictorian. Because the student who's the valedictorian, but who doesn't actually care about learning, the student who's got the best grades, but for whom it's all a chore and not a joy, in a college community, the faculty love to teach, and they love to mentor, and they love to guide students, and they love to engage students. And the faculty know they don't know everything, so they love students who are thinking about this stuff, right? So I can't emphasize enough the love of learning, the enjoyment in the process, the questioning, the wondering, the sort of mental critiquing. That is, on an academic level, that's the first thing we look at. And there are those distinctions to be made among good students. And the fact that you're here means you have the capability of being a good student, and the fact that you're here means that you have the potential to be not only a good student, but a good thinker and a good learner. And you know, that's the skill to develop. If you ask me from an admissions perspective, that's the skill to develop. All right, so that's the first thing. The second thing is, it's worth thinking about what and I'm talking to the students now. It's worth thinking about what matters to you. It's worth, and some people in the admissions profession use the word passion. I don't like the word passion, because I think people get nervous about, oh, I don't have a passion. There's not one thing that I'm completely obsessed with. You don't have to have that, right? But it's worth thinking about what matters to you. What do you care about? And it can be almost anything. Not video games, by the way. Like, exclude that. I mean, you can care about that, but I don't care about that. And so if you tell me that you care about that, I'm not going to care about it. And then your parents are going to care about that. Oh, stay away from that. But let's think about other things in the world. It could be academic, it could be non-academic, right? It could be it could be environmental stuff, it could be religious stuff, it could be academic things. I mean, there are 1,000 things that can matter to you. If it's worth doing, right? If it's something that's worth caring about, then that's worth pursuing. Don't worry about what other people are doing. Don't worry about what you think the norm is, right? If there are things that you care about, we on the college side will notice. We will notice in multiple ways when you have spent time and made a commitment to and put your heart into things that matter. It could be music, I mean, for all I know, gosh, I was just at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, and they've got a great exhibit of rock and roll musicians' instruments. All right, so if you're the next, I'm not going to age myself by mentioning people that you've never heard of, and I'm not going to embarrass myself by trying to mention people that you have heard of that I haven't heard of. But if good music, your definition of good music, if that's your thing, right? That's great, and if it's violin and piano, that's great. But think about why you're doing things, and the more you do things that matter to you, the more you put heart and soul into them, the more you're willing to make the commitment. I think the better off you'll be in the admissions process. And again, parents, in terms of meeting our children where they are, this is not unimportant. I'll give you a quick example. So my kid, who's a little further along in the quantum physics final, so obviously a STEM kid, right? Summer between the junior and senior year of high school, right? Like the most important possible summer. That's what people tell us. I was actually, my kid is not at Caltech, by the way, but I was sitting next to a Caltech admissions officer the year before my child applied, and they said, so, what research is Aaron doing over the summer? And I went, Aaron is not doing any research. So I felt terrible, by the way. So what Aaron did over the summer was two things: a German immersion program in Berlin for a month, and then Aaron worked at a fused glass studio that was about 1.5 miles from where we live, over the summer because Erin had spent summers there and wanted to do that. No research, no STEM, no nothing, right? But that's what Erin really wanted to do. And I had to say, okay, because that was what was important. And it was good stuff. It was interesting stuff. It mattered. It was, there was an aesthetic element to it. But I had to become comfortable with the idea of meeting my child where they were, supporting them, and then living with the reality that some colleges were going to find that cool and interesting, and some may not. But we felt good at the end of the day that the person who was presented to colleges was the person they were. So this is children and parents. Third thing. Oh, we're moving right along. All right. In whatever you're doing, right? If you have the opportunity, try to make things better. Try to improve things, right? If you're part of an organization, you don't have to just sort of go along. Try to make it better. If you're on a team, make the team, what can you do to make the team better? If you're working, what can you do to make things better? If you're in a volunteer organization, right? It's one thing, I tell you, we notice when people have a positive impact. We notice the difference when people are just sort of going along and doing what they're supposed to do, as opposed to thinking about why they're where they are and how they can make things better. So in our office, we sometimes use the word impact, all right? Other people use other terms, but the opportunity to make things better, the opportunity to support other people, to be kind, to be nice, to be supportive, to be helpful. Those, I think, from our perspective, those things matter. They matter in part because we are all creating a community, right? When we make admissions decisions, believe me, when we make admissions decisions, it's not a matter of picking the people with the best credentials, academic and otherwise. It's about creating a community. And one of the things we're all very aware of is that it's a community of people. And we like people who are nice to each other, and we like people who help each other, and we like people who are interested in whatever they're involved in making it better. So if you have that opportunity to be a positive influence, to push things along, to think about how things can be done better, that's awesome. All right. Wow. I'm actually kind of on schedule, which is weird for me. It must be the stool. All right. I'm sorry if I disappoint you in what I'm about to say, but you need to hear this, so I apologize ahead of time. There are people that will say, and parents, I really apologize if I'm undercutting what you've been telling your child for 13 years, 12. Depends on when they started listening to you and when they stopped, I suppose. Yeah, we've been there. People will tell you that if you want something enough, and if you work at it hard enough, you can get whatever you want, right? That if you want it hard enough and you're willing to sacrifice and you're willing to work hard enough at it, that you will accomplish what you want, right? That may be true in some parts of life. It is not true with respect to college admissions, right? So I'm just going to put that out there. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but there are people that we don't admit who deserve it as much as the people that do. There are people that we don't admit who have worked really hard to accomplish something that we are denying them. There are people that have done everything right and have done everything everything they possibly can, and we still say no to them, not because we don't like them, but because we've got a large applicant pool and a relatively limited number of spots, and so we have to make these decisions. And so occasionally, I get a phone call or a letter from a parent, or sometimes a student, that sort of says, this is what I've been working for. Every decision I've made, every choice that I've made has been with this goal, to get into Duke or to get into Harvard or any other college, right? And now you're telling me I can't, so why did I do all these things, right? If it didn't get me the goal that I wanted, which I completely understand. And to that, I don't have much of an answer to why did I do all those things. Maybe because you weren't in the audience when I was talking. So here's the thing. The reason to love learning and the reason to do things that matter or that matter to you, the reason to sort of to put that energy in and the reason to make things better, from my perspective, is so that if things don't work out, if you don't get the ultimate goal that you were aiming for, you don't have to look back with regret and wonder, well, why did I do all those things, right? If it didn't get me admission to X, Y, or Z, right? Or H, Y, or P. Sorry, little admissions joke. Obviously very little. But that's, right? You want to do things because they matter. You want to do things because they're enriching. You want to do things because they push you along, right? There are all kinds of good reasons to do it. But the degree to which you make decisions because they matter to you, because they're good things to do, because they're worth doing, then if things happen not to work out, and in everyone's life, not everything works out, you don't have to look back with regret like you wasted time. That was a decision we made with our own child. In the summer between the junior and the senior year, it's like, okay, look, these are the things that matter to you. We agree that they're worth doing. They push you along. You helped other people, and we said some colleges may not like this, and are you okay with that? To which the answer was, yeah, I'm okay with it. If not every college likes it, that's fine. This is the stuff that matters to me. So, and our child did not get admitted to every college they applied to. But we never had to worry about why choices were made. It was true of the schooling as well. Why choices were made. They were made because it was the right decision at the right time, and we weren't worried about the goal at the end. So try to make decisions so that if things don't work out, you're not going to have any regrets. Okay, and here's the last thing I'm going to share right now. And then we'll open the floor to questions. Oh, this is great. Okay. So I don't know you. I've known people like you. And for some of you, maybe most or even all of you, you may have that identity of being the smart kid. Oh, that's the smart kid, right? Gets, hands in, hands in the exam 10 minutes before everybody else, right? Or walks out of the room going, oh, that was a fun test, wasn't it? And wasn't being snarky. There are a million ways in which, in which that can manifest itself, right? And so sometimes you kind of get a reputation as being, oh, that's the smart kid, right? And from a personal perspective, but also really from a college admissions perspective, don't let that define you, right? What's cool, what we love is when we read applications and it's like, here's this really engaged student who loves what they're doing. Oh yeah, and they're really smart too, right? Here's this nice student. Here's the student that everybody likes to be with, or at least, everybody feels supported by. Not everybody will like to be with you because you're smarter than they are, Okay, so let's just, you know, but you know, if you're, you know, if don't let being the smart kid define you. You know, if you're the nice kid, if you're the interesting student, if you're the engaged student, if you're the helpful student, if you're the, you know, there are 1,000 ways to do middle school and high school, right? Middle school, there's kind of one way to do middle school, and it's not a good one, but we all survive. But there are 1,000 ways to do high school. There are 1,000 things to get involved in, and when we read applications, we're not thinking about how smart is this student. We're thinking about what's this student going to add to our community. And then, if we say, oh, here's a student that knows how to get involved. Here's a student that knows how to support other students. Here's a student that that really cares about things, that spends time on things worth doing, right? All those things. And then, here's a really cool, believe me, because I've been doing this for almost 40 years. You read this application, you go, wow, this is a great kid. And then you can turn to the academics and go, wow, and they're really smart too. It's like, bingo. Then now you've made the admissions officer's job easier, right? So the gift that you've been given, the gift of whatever you want to call it, intelligence, good wiring, talent, whatever you want to call it, that gift is a tool. And your job is to use it, and your parents' job is to support it. And it's a great thing, and it has the potential to take you far. And here you are, right? And this is a great event, and it's meaningful, and it's wonderful, and I hope your parents are as proud of you as I was of my child when we were here. But it's the beginning. It's not the end. It lays out a road, and it's the opportunity now to do more really interesting, nice, positive, good things in a path that isn't always open to everybody else. So I'll finish with this. There's a really interesting intersection between admissions and how you make your decisions. Right? Admissions offices really try to figure out who this student is as a person. You'd be surprised at the degree to which the conversations we have in admissions committee are not about academic credentials. You would be really surprised by the degree to which our conversations are not about academic credentials. They are about the choices that students have made. They are about what they do outside of class. They're about what kind of person they are in terms of, in terms of, and you could be an introvert or an extrovert. That's both cool, right? But it's about how do they spend time on what matters to them? How do they spend time on things that matter to them? How do they support their friends? How do they push things forward? How do they make things better? Those are the students we want. So if you push yourself in that direction, one, it doesn't guarantee that you'll be admitted to any particular school, but at least it increases the odds, and you won't ever have to look back with any kind of regret about the choices you made. And the other thing is, I think it makes for a happier and more successful and more fulfilled life in high school and college and beyond. And that's what we want for our children. That's what we want for ourselves. That's the good part. And you're on the path, and you have that possibility. And your parents' job is to support you and guide you and rein you in, but lift you up as well. So with that, I will stop for a moment and say thank you for listening to me. I appreciate it. And, oh yeah, go ahead, you can clap, that's fine. I won't be embarrassed. Okay, this is amazing. We have 15 minutes for questions. There are 4 microphones. 1, 2, 3 up there on the balcony, and 4. And if there are questions, there are a lot of things I didn't get a chance to talk about. Oh yes, sorry, Shauna has a quick announcement before we go to that. And if you've got questions, you can come up to the mics.
Yes, so Christoph is going to take questions now. He'll stay a little bit more if we have pressing questions. If you do need to transition to get to your lunch, that's fine also. Just be mindful that grand recognition ceremony starts at 1:30 at Cameron Indoor Stadium. And we purposely, I just wanted to quickly say, did not necessarily share a lot about the TIP programs, but I know some of you might have questions about that. So we have tables over at Cameron Indoor Stadium that will share information with you on that. And we're always here. We're family now, so you can always reach out to us and let us know if you have questions, okay? So we'll start with those at the microphone. And there's some at the front, too, if you are interested in asking questions at the top.
And I may answer the questions briefly to make sure that we get as many answers as we can. Yes, sir.
Brief.
Sure.
Thank you very much for your time today and for your very nice presentation. I just was wondering if you could tell us whether you all in admissions have a particular perspective on the IB program at high schools, as it compares to AP.
AP, sure. So admissions officers are curriculum agnostic. Right? In other words, whether it's AP or IB, here's an important thing. We know that students often don't have a choice about where they go to high school, right? Because they're zoned for a particular school. That school has decided we're an AP school or an IB school, or we're not, or we're a dual enrollment school. So we do not have a preference, and we do not have a bias for any particular curriculum. What we want is we want the students, whatever curriculum they've chosen, to take advantage of it and do as well as they can. I'll get to you in a sec, because I'll get it. Yes, please, go ahead. Sure.
For your time.
You're welcome.
I heard you speak before, not today, but...
Did I contradict myself?
No,
okay.
No, it's, I really enjoyed listening to you, a lot of insights. I heard you before saying Duke will figure out ways to admit a student if you decide to, if they are really good. My question is, should we be constrained in our thinking by our economic affordability to think about whether to apply for the school or not?
I'm sorry, constrained by the?
By the economic affordability.
Oh, that is a really, thank you for asking that question. Thank you for asking that question. That's a really, really good question. Right, to what degree should family consider the colleges that they can afford when their child is applying, right? And that's a great question because the answer essentially is yes. All right, you have to, as a family, think about, every family is in a different situation economically. Every college has slightly or radically different rules about the amount of need-based financial aid they're going to offer, the amount of merit aid they're going to offer. It's really, it's like, as I said in a different context, if you like lists and spreadsheets, you're going to love college admissions, right? Because you just have to keep track of everything. Colleges that seem the same have different rules. So it's really wise for a family to be honest with itself about its resources, to apply to a range of colleges, some of which are lower cost, some of which are higher cost, some of which may have merit scholarships, others of which may not. So it's make that part of your thinking. The second thing is I want to introduce to you 2 terms that you will run across if you haven't already. The first term is need blind or need aware, right? So those are mirror terms. Need blind means that a college does not take a family's financial need into account when they're making admissions decision. Need aware means that a college does take a family's financial resources and need into account when they're making admissions decisions. So that's one mirror, need blind, need aware. And the other is meets full need or gaps, right? Those are mirror images as well. A school that meets full need makes sure that a need-based financial aid package meets the entire need of a family. Gapping means that they don't do that, that they leave need unmet. And just a final twist, just because an institution meets full need does not mean that they don't have loans or a lot of them. Does not mean that they don't expect students to work in the summer. So so pay attention, be a little skeptical, have a good list. Thank you. Go ahead. And I see up there, yeah.
There's been a lot of talk about all the different programs, and IB's been mentioned in AP, but there's one that's kind of newer on the field that I know they're pushing in our area, and it's called Cambridge.
Cambridge, yes. So interestingly, so there's a new curriculum in town, in parts of North Carolina in particular. Oh yes, it's very popular in Florida. It's starting out in some Charlotte schools as well, called Cambridge. And ironically, or fortunately, I happen to be on an advisory committee for Cambridge assessment as they think about rolling this curriculum out to schools in the United States. So I'm actually a big fan of Cambridge. I mean, I like it as much as I like IB or AP. If you want an analog, Cambridge is kind of like IB in its rigor, in its breadth, in the fact that it started not in the United States, in the integration of subjects, in the possibility of having research as part of it, of having an extended writing sample as part of it. I think, now, some schools have Cambridge and or IB and or AP, right? And so that's just a matter that, I don't know, that's too complicated for me. Fortunately, my child's in college. But I would not shy away from a Cambridge school. And Cambridge has been doing curricula for generations, recently in the US, but a lot overseas. So they know what they're doing. So if a Cambridge school and what's called the ACE diploma is part of what's being offered, I would be very, very comfortable with that in your shoes.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You have a question up there, sir.
Thank you for your time. So based on your particular interests and the fields and colleges you want to go into the future, how would you recommend finding common activities that help you with both parts of the admission process and the interests that you currently have?
So how does one find activities?
No, how does one know which activities would help them both with the admissions processes and the fields they want to go into and their particular interests?
I'd say two things. Thank you. I would say I would not worry about future fields. Honestly, I think that the degree to which we see students change their minds when they're in college is I would pursue things that interest them. And if they think this is something that they want to do as a career, and some students are interested in politics or some students are interested in medicine. And if they think that will help them, I think that's great, but it's not as important as it being intrinsically interesting to them. I would, the things that my kid did during the summer, my kid's a double major in math and physics. Right, the kids, the things that they did in the summer had very, very little. They did tip, right? So that was for 3 weeks, right? So I would say, think more about for me, the questions really are: is it worth doing? Is it worth doing? And is it interesting and stimulating and fun and worthwhile? That's personally. I think that's the rest will fall into place. With admissions, with careers, the rest will fall into place. And the number of students that do things because they think it's going to look good in admissions is greater than the number of students that do things because they really want to do them and they really matter to them and they really care about them. And it's the second group actually that has the advantage. Thanks for your question. Sure, go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Guttentag. You made a lot of very good points today, and we actually share the same view with our kids that they should do what they are passionate about rather than what would potentially make them interested to the anonymous admission committees. One point I haven't heard a lot about today is the uniquely American phenomenon of college athletics. And one of the things that our kids are not interested in is participating in sports. So two questions I have are, one, would you be able to share with us what percentage of Duke freshman class is admitted through the athletic preferences? And
Through the what?
Through the athletic preferences,
Oh, yeah, sure,
where,
okay.
where
Sure.
they're given a preference over somebody who is more academically qualified potentially.
Sure.
Because there's a lot in the press right now about selective schools doing that.
Right.
And the second question is, when you spoke about schools that focus mainly on academics, and many of them are good ones, would you recommend some of those for those that wouldn't be subject to athletic preferences? Thank you.
Yeah. So I don't know about other schools, right? And I will say the questions that you've asked. So I'll just start by saying the incoming first-year class at Duke. The incoming first-year class at Duke will have about 1,740 students. And by last count, around 150, 155 of them were recruited athletes. So about 8%, 8 to 9%. What you will find, that's a really, really good question to ask, because one of the things that surprises people sometimes is that some smaller liberal arts colleges actually have a much higher percentage than larger universities. The colleges that and I want to make sure I understand your second question. The colleges that focus primarily on academic credentials, right? To be honest, I only know my own two schools. Well, I used to know Penn, and now I know Duke. I think there are a lot of state universities that focus primarily on academic credentials. That has changed as they've become more selective, actually. But if a college, for example, doesn't ask for letters of recommendation from a teacher, or they don't ask for a letter of recommendation from a college counselor, that's an indication that their emphasis is more on the academic credentials. That said, and then you can tell me if I didn't answer your question. We're in a really interesting situation right now with respect to college sports. And we're lucky to be at a school that's Division I, that manages to be strong academically and athletically. I think there's an interesting question to be asked in society about the role of athletics in college admissions. There are colleges, the colleges that typically are Division III have made a decision not to offer athletic scholarships to minimize the importance of intercollegiate athletics in the admissions process, and in terms of their commitment to what they expect of the students while they're at college, right? I mean, if you go to a Division I school and you do athletics, that's a very significant time commitment. Division III schools do it differently. But I don't know enough about the intersection between those two at schools where the admissions process is primarily driven by academic credentials. Did that answer your question? Okay, well then you can ask me more later. Oh, whether it's a good thing to have athletics? Oh, well, I'll tell you. Oh, okay. Here's my sense. Colleges make admissions decisions based on what's important to the university. to that. Each university has different, colleges have different perspectives on legacy admissions. You can have different state universities. Different state universities have different criteria for in-state and out-of-state students, but those are different. The University of North Carolina and the University of Virginia and the University of Michigan and the University of Texas, 4 wonderful state universities, have different rules about how many students can be in-state and out-of-state. Those are institutional decisions. Some Division I schools have said college athletics is important. I will say this, I like being at a school that manages to do both, and that manages to do both at a high, both academics and athletics at a high level. Not everybody agrees with me. Go ahead.
Thank you for speaking today. I was wondering that if you're a student who has an athletic ability, will you have an increase in odds of being accepted into a university like yours?
Oh, if you're an athlete?
Yes.
So thank you for asking that question. I think athletic admissions is one of the most complicated parts for a student and family. So the way it typically works, and this is one of the things we saw in the recent scandal, is that coaches typically can present to the admissions committee the students in whom they have an interest, right? So there's a third person in this. There's the student, there's the university admissions office, and then there's the coach, right? And so if a coach is advocating for a student, it can make a difference, but it doesn't always, because the coach may be recruiting students, but the admissions office still has to vet them. So the question is, does it make a difference? It can, but it doesn't always, depending on what kind of a student somebody is, and also how good of an athlete they are compared to the other players that the coach is recruiting that year. So it's complicated, and now, as a student, if you're a recruited athlete, you have to pay attention to a whole nother variable, which is what is the coach telling you about how much they want you? And there's no simple answer. But yeah, can it make a difference? Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Go ahead.
What if your child...
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. What if your child, your gifted child, lives in a region of the country that offers little to no AP nor an IB program, and they are taking the best that their school may offer? If they do enroll in their own time, that, from what I'm gathering, takes away from their ability to pursue other things that they find joy in life and want to improve.
Right.
So what do you suggest from an admissions standpoint? On paper, they will not look as good because they do not have all those courses.
Yeah, it's a really tough one, because when you're in a situation where there aren't that many academic opportunities, what does a student pursue? And I think there are two answers to that. That's something that every family kind of decides on their own and about their child's happiness, right? This has a little bit to do with, what's the frustration level of your child not being able to do X or not being able to do Y, right? It's a tough decision. The other thing, though, is one of the things to look at are summer academic programs, right? Because that's often an opportunity, because we see that, we know what schools offer. We can see because schools send us school profiles.
Okay.
So we can see what a school does or does not offer, right? But the summer programs that take place all over the country, really, some very close by, some very far away, summer programs are often an opportunity either for a student to pursue extracurricular activities that they couldn't because they were doing dual enrollment, or to pursue something academic because they had these other things that really mattered to them extracurricularly, and so it didn't give them an opportunity to do the dual enrollment academic. It's a tough one. It's just a tough one.
We could move, I guess.
What's that?
We should move.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, sometimes people do, but it's not something that I recommend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sure, go ahead. What time is it? Okay, great. We're going to go about 5 more minutes, and then y'all can leave, and then if people have other questions, I'll stick around for a little bit.
First of all, I'd like to say that I loved your I loved your presentation. So my question for you is kind of hypothetical.
I'd give you water, but I've been drinking out of my bottle.
Yeah, I've been really sick for it lately for some reason. Okay, so my question for you is kind of a hypothetical. So you're a dean of admissions. So if
So
you,
far, it's not hypothetical. I actually am a dean of admissions.
okay, so if you were to receive 2 applications,
Two, yeah.
one of them was for a student who was very well-rounded academically,
Yeah.
and they had great grades and everything,
Yeah.
right? But the other student wasn't maybe as well
Right.
academically and was more, but did make deep achievements in a single field. So hypothetically, which one would you choose?
I have absolutely no idea who I choose. I don't mean to be dismissive, but here's the thing. So you've got any time. Here's the problem. Anytime you've got a hypothetical like that, you've got a well-rounded student who's good in all areas, and then you've got a more, let's just say, an angular student, right, who is really good in one particular area. Like, who do you choose? Both of those students could be really appealing, or both of those students would be somebody that we would deny. And here's why. Because I don't have to pick one student. I pick 1,700, right? And so I'm looking at both of those students in the context of the whole applicant pool and everybody I've admitted. So sometimes a student, there are well-rounded students we don't admit, and there are angular students that we do admit. They're really talented in a particular area. They've really made a difference. They're strong academically, but they're not perfect in all areas, and we're going like, here's somebody that would really add something. All right. So sometimes I deny the well-rounded student and I admit the angular student. Sometimes that well-rounded student is really good and really appealing and has had a lot of really cool accomplishments. And the angular student, yeah, they're really good in one area, but they're not exceptional. They're just really good. And the rest of the application is okay, but it doesn't stand out. So now I'm going to admit the well-rounded student and not admit the angular student. So the problem is I can't answer that question, not in some ways because it's unanswerable and because we like both kinds of students. We like the angular student, we like the well-rounded student, we like the student who's really focused, we like the student who does a lot of things. But it so much depends on the particular individual case. And we've admitted both, we've denied both, which for me gets back to the principle of, you know, if your kid is a well-rounded kid, be well-rounded. You know, embrace that. They're doing 5 different things, you know, and that's who they are. Or the student really only has 1 or 2 things that really matter to them. Yeah, they're doing other things, but you know, they're really loving this one thing. Be that. That's the best answer I've got. Be who you are as well as you can be, and if you're well-rounded, be well-rounded, and if you're angular, be angular. Do as well as you can in as many academic areas as you can, and keep your fingers crossed.
Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome. Sure, go ahead.
So does being part of the Duke Tip program affect your chances of being accepted into Duke?
Oh, does being part of Duke Tip affect your chances of being admitted to Duke? It doesn't. In and of itself, the fact that it's Duke Tip in particular that it's a Duke program doesn't give you a leg up for Duke. Some students do Johns Hopkins CTY. I was talking with a student who did Northwestern, right? Some students are not able to do programs like this. What matters is not that it's a Duke program, because the Duke Tip program is an enrichment program for students, the same way Hopkins CTY is, the same way other programs are as well. You know, it's like Stanford, I think, has an online high school. It used to be EPGY, it's now something else now. It's like, okay, so it's Stanford, right? So, but it's still okay, right? It's like I don't hate it just because it's Stanford. So it is taking advantage of opportunities, showing ability, showing what you can do with it. That's what matters. The fact that so it's tip-like programs for us indicate a student's inclination to pursue a challenge. But the fact that it's Duke alone, there are lots of other good programs out there. But that also means that Stanford and Harvard and Princeton won't hold it against you to do Duke too. So anyway, so there you go.
Thank you.
Sure, go ahead.
Can you shed some light on homeschooling in the admissions process as it compares to the IB or AP programs?
Sure. Let me talk about homeschooling. And I think what I'll do is I'll make that the last question. Then for other people, I'll stick around and you can ask me a question. Because it's a really good... So homeschooling is tricky. Homeschooling is tricky because the number of families that are able to offer as challenging a curriculum as IB or AP or Cambridge is relatively small. They exist. So what we care about two things. We care about the rigor of the curriculum and how well students do. It's particularly important with homeschooled families, homeschooled students, because I will be honest with you, it's rare to see a homeschooled transcript that isn't straight A's, and it's rare to see a counselor recommendation from a parent that doesn't start, yes, I'm their parent, but I can be objective, right? Which I don't believe. So what's important, therefore, with homeschooling is that we have adequate evidence of how well the student is prepared within a context of other high school students. So that could mean some classes at a high school or college. It could mean summer programs. It could certainly mean standardized test scores, whether it's AP, whether it's IB. It could mean subject tests on the SAT. Like what we don't have with homeschooled students is a larger context. So what we crave is the larger context. But all of my colleagues that I've spoken with in admissions have a different perspective on homeschooling now than they did 30 years ago. Schools are very open to homeschool. Colleges are very open to homeschool students, and they're very careful not to be biased against homeschool students and really to meet them where they are. But the challenge for a family is to provide evidence, a broad evidence, rather than simply narrow evidence. Does that make sense? Got it. All right. I'm going to stop. A lot of you are still sticking around, so bless your heart. So thank you.